Dude, you said something on our pre-talk that kind of blew my socks off. With you guys are consistently doing north of 100 million annually, and you said we have not adopted AI.
My big core success has just been building relations, building community, building
Mm.
uh, how do you say it, a fan base, and just kind of exploding on that. And when I say just keep diving deeper, it's just keep touching as many people as I can, whether it's here, local, phone calls, emails, flights, traveling to different cities, and just making
Yeah.
new connections has been the biggest success of the last few years. And it's just the more I've been doing, the more success I've been having. If you're very like-minded with someone who's in another market, it's very likely that their friend or their referral or their client will also be like-minded like them. So it's a seamless
Yeah.
transition.
Today's episode is brought to you by Andy Buchbinder, the founder of the Buchbinder team out of the Carolinas. Him and his team cover more than 5 counties and have done over 5,000 transactions. So if you have a client who's been thinking about making a move to or from the Carolinas, they are the team to call. Today, I sit down with Aaron Buchbinder and we talk about, is AI the icing or the cake? So stay tuned for that. Really powerful information he shared. So definitely get a notepad and pen ready to go. We also talk about the inner circle group, and he talks about the importance of hanging out with your peers and essentially peer coaching, having people to volley ideas off of, learning from, and as well sharing some referrals. So if you're interested in learning more about that, scroll down to the description below and click the link for the inner circle group. And as always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Sean Conkler. Aaron, dude, you said something on our pre-talk that kind of blew my socks off. With you guys are consistently doing north of 100 million annually, and you said we have not adopted AI.
Yeah,
Say more.
it's true. We are very well aware of the benefits of AI, but I also feel like all these shiny toys can be distractions. Granted, we are adapting some of it into our practices, but it's not our main focal point. And it's I definitely see the merits for all the success, but I don't want to fix something that's not broken.
Amen. I love that. I love that you're saying it, right? It's anybody can say it, but if you're producing 100 million annually and you're saying, if I can summarize, it's the icing, not the cake. I really wish agents will hear that, because we so easily, as entrepreneurs, who most of us have ADHD or some high distraction, we're always chasing that shiny object to solve the it's the quick fix. And you're saying it's not it. It's not the quick fix.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I just think it's a potential big distraction in the room because I think AI has done great stuff for us. Like we do use
Hmm.
it for our property descriptions, we do use it for stuff, but like I'm not sitting here trying to figure out how to recreate the wheel with something that's
Right.
already working. We just look at it as an area for advice and help, especially
Yeah.
when it comes to certain things. But we are just continuing to grind.
And say more about that. When you say continuing to grind, what are those activities?
I mean, for us, for those who don't know, being in the biz, I'm in about year 15 now because we're in 26, so it's probably been about close to 15 years in the business. It's just
Okay.
an evolution of the trade and the practice, and I've tried so many different routes to success in this business. And for some, could be the new AI world. For some,
Hmm.
it's the leads. For some, it's Zillow. For some, it's been all these different things. But for me, it's always been about uh, my big core success has just been building relations, building community, building uh, how do you say it, a fan base, and just kind of exploding on that. And when I say just keep diving deeper, it's just keep touching as many people as I can, whether it's here, local, phone calls, emails, flights, traveling to different cities, and just making
Yeah.
new connections has been the biggest success of the last few years. And it's just the more I've been doing, the more success I've been having from that. So when I say just grinding on it, it's just like, even this year, I'm in February and I haven't traveled anywhere yet. So it's like, well, where's the next place to go? And it's already trying to figure out that roadmap for the rest of the year so I can just try to get more exposure out there.
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real world results, this system replaces chaos of a to do list with a curated set of high impact actions. It's simple: set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy. You focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day 15 minutes at a time. That's smart. And then if we can kind of break down that a little bit into buckets, because you mentioned local and then I'm interpreting nationally.
Mhm.
When you're local, who's your target audience? And then when you're hopping on a flight and going to different places, who is your target audience and is it changing?
Um, I think it's always evolving is the word I would say, not necessarily changing because you just kind of
Sure.
adapt to with what's happening. Uh,
Yeah.
like over the last few years, a big migration. I realized there was a lot of push from people coming from south to north, and you still get that because the price points south in Miami are, so much more, and dollar for value. If you're looking for a suburban lifestyle like here in Boca Raton, you don't really have a lot of that. Even in Broward and different areas, unless you're going west to Plantation Davy, you don't have like a lot of the gated communities out east. So, it's always kind of like a migration of people. And it's just like, I've realized, well, immerse myself more south because if I'm south or have good connections with people south, most of the time they don't want to come north. And I'm not saying that's everybody. I try to be super
Yeah.
hyper local. I don't necessarily try to drive up and down an hour each way. I really just try to stay within a 15, 20-minute drive of my designated area because I feel like there's just so much business here. And
Yeah.
from
Smart.
continuing creating relationships organically um, in the South Florida, I would call it the Tri County area, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach. There's just a lot of opportunities to network with people aging south who don't necessarily want to drive the hour up this way. So, I
Yeah.
try to make Miami, even Broward, a big focal point of making stops. I would say, here regionally, and then obviously there's the West Coast, Naples, and other things over there where you do see some reciprocity. Because when people come think South Florida, think people usually are thinking retirement or lifestyle change. They don't just necessarily know where and why. And so that's why I try to go to those markets to understand the why and also
Yeah.
explain what great benefits we have here on the East Coast and why Boca more than anybody. And from that, great opportunities. And even myself as a broker, you talk to people all the time and you realize some people just Boca might not be for them and, refer them to other things. Like I've just referred a few other opportunities to the other South Florida markets because it just wasn't in my
Yeah.
backyard.
It's smart. I mean, I think knowing your lane and then staying in it is so incredibly important. The same with the Bay Area. It's like you cross over a bridge, it's different contracts. There's different nuances. There's different statutory require. It's a different landscape altogether. But it sounds like with your networking and connecting, it's primarily with the agent group who are feeding their clients in and out of those areas. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and honestly, it all started because I used to be very invested into the PPC, the pay-per-click ads and all the different things
Yeah.
for buying leads. And then, all of a sudden one day, these two big guys that I was working forever, who I swore were going to buy in Boca, ended up buying South. And I realized I wasn't asking the right questions. I missed out on the referral opportunities South, and that I need to dive deeper into that world. And I
Yeah.
kind of stopped everything I was doing then. And I realized that there's just a whole um, network, especially I would say here at Compass. But it's, I'm not just limited to Compass now for referring with people, but I really
Sure.
said, I think there's something here in the Kool-Aid where I could jump along and there's a few other brokers here that I saw have tremendous success with how they are doing their referral networks. And A lot of them were
Yeah.
great guidance, but, obviously you have to figure out your own secret sauce. So I said, you know what? A few years ago, I was like, I got to get my name on the map. Let's just start here regionally because as you go around, you need a fan base. So I was like, well, how do you get a fan base? That's like typically most people they go on tour. So,
Yep.
I remember my
Yeah.
first place was going to Orlando. And then I kind of went from Orlando to Naples. And then, you kind of just start bouncing around. And then as, you go around more and more, it's not necessarily the person you meet that day. It's the person they may meet and say, hey, do you have someone in Boca? And they say, funny enough, Aaron was just in our office. So, I've had tremendous success like that. And then once I started really doing a lot of that here in South Florida, I said, it's time to take this show on the road. And then, I sat down with a manager, really identified my feeder markets, and then started
Yep.
traveling to them.
Hey, friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show. Um, that's incredible and smart. There's an app I'll share with you. Remind me, I'll share it with you afterwards. But you can actually see in real time the migration of closed deals and where they're coming from, and so like you can literally start tweaking on the fly. But you open so many interesting sub conversations within all of that. And that's what I've been doing is studying those agents like the Francie Molinas and the Andy Bovenders, the ones who are super high connected and networked, and then thus they built the team, the infrastructure, and they're number one in their markets because of it. And so I see what you're doing, and I see obviously the numbers you're putting up and the value and where it is. When you're going and making and building this fan base, what are you specifically doing? Because I want to preface that with we all see we're all salespeople, and we always sniff out that thing when people are like, "I'm not here to sell you," but then I'm here to sell you. How are you doing it in a way? Because your reputation precedes you. You were introduced to me because Francie actually knew you, and she's like, "Oh my God, have you guys talked? You guys have to talk." So obviously, you're doing it in the right way. What are you doing?
It's kind of organic. I always say, even when it doesn't matter what you do, you're always kind of dating. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because you want to have natural
Good point.
relationships with people. I want to work with people that are like minded, like myself, and I want to work with people that are things. So what I typically do is when I go to sub markets or different things or anywhere, you're trying to find, I'll call it like your tribe. You're trying to find your
Yeah.
group of people. And sometimes it's through managers, sometimes it's just through word of mouth of other people. Be like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I, like, for example, like I would talk to a manager in New York and be like, listen, I'm a single agent or I'm on a small team or, who are some new agents that are in the mix who may or may not have connections or, who's someone that you think needs help with building a refer base. But then, you talk about your personalities. It's like really having coffee
Yeah.
talks with everyone. And, you want to get along because, like Francie and a lot of the other people, it's like we have like-minded characteristics, we have like-minded
Yeah.
interests, we have like-minded hobbies and different things like that. So that way, if for one day a referral does come your way, it's something that you can connect with because if you're very like-minded with someone who's in another market, it's very likely that their friend or their referral or their client will also be like-minded like them. So it's a seamless
Yeah.
transition. So that's been really just kind of figuring out my secret sauce is like, well, how do I find more people that I would just want to have a beer with or just hang out with or talk sports with and that have
Yeah.
like common things? Because if you don't have much in common, it's even harder. so, uh,
So true.
so I've always just been like, when I've gone around to different offices, you always rely on your friends or your network or the managers or different things. Be like, hey, who's a good person that I would just kind of vibe with and
Yeah.
that I can connect with? And then it's just kind of building more of the fan base as you kind of go from one area to the other. And granted, there's different things I do to each market to try to create a drawing, whether I'm throwing a happy hour, a lunch, a breakfast, or doing one-on-ones. It's all genuine, it's all organic. And I feel like it took a couple years to build a quote unquote following, but it's been extremely successful. But I've also put a lot of things in place so I could go off the mark, go on the road show and do these things. Cause, if you can't be on the road, probably 60 plus days a year and have a successful business at the same time unless you have the right foundations.
Yeah, all great points. Like you need the whole system needs to work together for the system to work. But I love what you said about just finding the tribe, finding those right people who you actually click with. And then even us, like you and I have not sat down and spoke prior to this. Like we're totally both flying blind, but you were introduced. There was a warm handoff. I totally admire and appreciate everything that Francie does. So when she introduced us, I was like, oh, of course I'm going to say yes. But then even while you're talking, you bring up sports. You mentioned Miami, you mentioned Naples, and I'm like, oh, I totally want to introduce you now to Charles Cilicia out of Miami or the Knox brothers out of Naples. Like they're in your feeders, so you should connect. I like them. They're cool. They're gonna click with you, and there's boom. It's like everybody wins, and I feel like to kind of to bring it all together is like as you start doing this, the whole thing starts building its own momentum onto itself, and then
Hmm.
you become like known as that thing.
No, and the Knox brothers are, it's a great example. They're actually one of the first agents I met when I went to Naples. And, we've talked a few times about like how we identified kind of where we go. But, everybody's got their reasons, and every market has different
Yeah,
feeders. And, I look at it as just trying to just build friendships across the area because it's like when I go
yeah.
to different areas, and my wife kind of jokes with me all the time about it because I'm like, oh, we're gonna go here. I'm gonna call so and so. She's like, we can do our own research, but like, I'm like, well, I'll call my friend who lives there and can tell us what to do, and not, don't have
Do
to
the
go
same
on,
thing.
don't have to go on ChatGPT, don't have to go on Google, don't have to do things like that's why you have friends, and I look at it as like I've just always been extending my network, but really more like friendships across the area. So that way, if I'm never bored, I can call someone wherever I am.
Yeah, it's totally true. Like if I'm heading up to Chicago, I already know who I'm gonna call and be like, I'm in this neighborhood. Like, where's like the spot? Like, what's the restaurant or the cafe or the like? I don't want to go to the popular one that everybody knows. I want to go to that one that the locals go to. Like, where's
Yeah.
that?
And that's just kind of how I've always kind of looked at things because I've always just been kind of like a word of mouth person with whatever things I've been doing. So it's just kind of even my local business, even though obviously I have a great extensive call it family of network of people referrals, but even being a really homegrown person here in South Florida, all my referrals have just been from people who I've met through the years, or friends, or things like that. And it's just people of like, hey, it's almost jokingly like every time I sell someone else, like, listen, I want you to be excited. If you're not excited, you're going to hate me and I'm going to see you, whether it's like at the
Yeah.
park or at the school or at the kids. It's like, I want this to be a good thing.
It's funny that philosophy in sales really ingrained itself in me when I was running a martial arts school because if I did something, if I used a sales technique to get you to sign, it first of all, it wouldn't feel good, but then I would have to see you tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next week and the next month. And so from like a relationship perspective, it's like I'd rather keep everything above board, keep it ethical, make you incredibly happy. So
Uh-huh.
then when you see me tomorrow, the next day, next month, next year, our relationship started great. The foundation was solid and we're good to go. And it's the same philosophy now of working with clients. Like I tell them day one, I'll never pressure you into buying anything. I don't care if it takes you 2 years to find the right place. I'm here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's with everything. And it's funny because, like I said, being from South Florida, I feel like you're so and specifically in the suburban world, you have so much influence on prospective people, and it's just like you're trying to just give them the right paths and
Yeah.
guidance, and you always give whatever quote unquote disclaimers, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to find success.
Yeah. 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 It's always like a tricky combination. I like what you said though about it's like dating. It's all whether you're meeting new clients, new agents, bringing people on the team. It's very much like dating. There's always a sequence to the events. There's like you can't rush any portion of it. You have to just really mature the relationship at its
No,
own pace.
and the same process, I've refined this quote unquote dating process even to pre-consultations and different things now, because back in the day you just be like, I want to see this house and go, and then, oh, show me others, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's like
Yeah.
I won't even take a client out until I've had a chance to quote unquote date them on a Zoom or a really lengthy phone call, because I just got to
Yeah.
know what I'm getting in the field with because higher retention rate.
I, dude, same page. And it's funny, I just sat with my business partner. We were reworking both our listing and buying presentation because I felt like we weren't vetting hard
Hmm.
enough to make
Hmm.
sure that we're working with the right people. And if they're not the right fit for us, we're definitely not going to be a right fit for them. And their experience is not going to be an A plus,
Hmm.
which that's hinged through all the referrals in the future. I'd rather hand them to the agent who would do an amazing job working with them
Uh-huh.
than for me to try to retain it for the sake of retaining it.
No, it's been a fun evolving journey through it all, and it's the one thing I really love about real estate is you're your own boss. No one can tell you what
Yeah.
to do, but you make your day in day out processes of it's a great lifestyle, but I say you got to have fun with it because there's different types of grinding. When I joke with grinding, it's just like, it's just you're doing it, but it's really fun because if it wasn't, they'd get out. But, back in the day, I used to do all the for sale by owner calls. I used to do all the crazy leads. And like, to me, that wasn't fun. To me, that was really
Yeah.
like a super grind and work. And now I'm just always calling around like, hey, Sean, anything new, et cetera, et cetera. You catch up. And then they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm glad we're catching up. I did talk to someone who was thinking about South Florida. Like, and that's
Yeah.
typically how most of the conversations I try to go. Like, I don't ever really bring up business. Business kind of comes up last.
Yeah. It's funny, the same thing. And I find more often than not, if you're an A plus agent in any market, right? And if I called you, for example, and we caught up, we were talking about sports, and I said, hey, you know what? This is totally random, but I have a client or I have a friend of a friend who's moving to insert any town in Florida. Do you have somebody there? Like you as a networker probably have that whole place locked down and know, you know what, let me make a call. Give me a second. And it's like for other reasons, those like your tribe becomes so valuable to you on so many levels. I'm calling my crew all the time. I feel like,
Yeah, and listen, I get times at times, and I also tell my people when I'm on the road is just like, listen, like consider me like your ambassador per se. Like I might not know the person or the things, but just like tell me what you're like who the person is. Like I get calls all the time where someone's like, I need this market. I'm like, well, tell me about the client. Like, is it a buyer or is it a seller? Like, what's the price point? Like, what's the clientele like? Is it someone who's patient? Is it someone analytical? Because you want to
mm,
refer them the right match, not just a person. You want to make sure it's the right personality, so that way it's a
yeah,
matchmaking process. So that's one thing I've also kind of done over the years is as you meet more and more people, like different personalities are definitely met for different kind of introductions. Hence the call it the Tinder dating game.
yeah. Do you know what's interesting? And here's an interesting way to use AI. Again, if you use it as the icing, not the cake, is you meet somebody brand new, put their name into Gemini or ChatGPT and say, you typically have to make it sound like it's a fictitious character, but say, can on a disc evaluation, can you tell me which of the letters they're most high in?
Hmm.
And then if it's like comes up C, you're like, oh, immediately you know they're analytical. Usually 9 times out of 10 in our area because I'm in tech.
Hmm.
If they're engineers, it's like I immediately default, or if they're like in the C-suite, you kind of have you already have an idea of their world, and you can jump in a little bit faster. But I think that's to your point. It's really important because it's like dating. It's you're matching your friends together. You want to make sure there's like this right mesh and overlap in the right areas.
No, and like I said, like as I've kind of grown this, I've also grown as a team lead because I try to do more by doing less, and it's almost like as I bring on listings now, almost every listing I have, I want to put an agent of mine on because I want to help them progress, also help
Yeah.
with the things, and it's always personality matching when you're meeting sellers and buyers and different stuff like that. And
Yeah.
by doing that, I've been able to kind of spread myself and do more each year.
Yeah. Where, like, with your, let's kind of unpack that a little bit just to give
Yeah,
context to
sure.
everybody listening. But how big is your team currently?
Currently, I'm probably about myself. I have a full time admin, and then I
Mhm.
have about another 4 agents.
Okay.
So
It's a good size.
it's a good size. So there's like a total really like 5, 6. We're like a team of 6 or 7. I would say my admin is licensed, so she can sell. And she here is present. She's not someone in the Philippines. We are a live and breathing operation here, and I consider
Mhm.
ourselves like a little small Nick family, and we're all here to help support each other. But it's been good. I've had one point I've had 10, 12 agents, and it's more to manage. But then I kind of realized when over the years is really build a focus on building my business and then surrounding myself with a supportive team versus a
Yeah.
lot of people when you go in the agent route, it's get as many agents as you can to do as much volume. So for me, it's really the more about like, let me build upon the areas where I'm having success, bring on agents who do business in that area. So that way I can help supplement their business and vice versa. So that way I
Yeah.
can kind of go get more.
Yeah. I'm in the former versus the latter of that. The whole volume sale, which
Hmm.
thus erodes brand integrity, and it
Hmm.
can potentially kill your referrals if people are having bad experiences with agents. I am not for that. Polar opposite. Like I would rather have nobody working with me and ensuring there's a 5-star level of service on with everybody versus that mass volume. Um, with your current evolution and all of your 15 years of learnings, which are a ton, if you were to kind of give yourself a job description, what would that look like?
Ooh, I never even thought about it like that. I would obviously, when you get in this business, nobody tells you you're going to be the CEO, CFO, HR, and all this
They
different stuff
don't.
of your own company and, psychotherapists and different stuff like this. But, I would really just my job description be first of all, father of two, above all, trying to live my best life and realizing that I am in a great world where I have a unique landscape of having influence in my backyard market in the world of real estate. So I really just consider myself a master networker whose widget happens to be selling homes. That's just the way I look at it. Nobody says you get to choose what you do. Obviously, the prettier the listings, the better. But
Yeah.
I at no given time, I know which listing I'm going to get, which matchmaking opportunity I can. I just you take what you can, and you just try to be the best bearer of advice to kind of get people across the finish line. So I really consider myself like the CEO of networking slash seller of widgets. That's the way I look at it. Because you just don't know what it's going to be.
Dude, I love that you said that. I feel like from doing this podcast, my evolution of all of this, I say more often than not, we're marketers who sell real estate from time to time.
Yeah.
Like that's which you essentially said the same thing in a different way, but that's like networking is a form of marketing, and that's we're in that activity itself is putting ourselves out there, which goes back to the very beginning of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's relationships. It's
100%.
relationships over tech. Like people choose you because they like you, they trust you, they know your personality, they understand. Oh, hey, when the deal's going sideways and the pressure's on, oh, Aaron's got 15 years of experience. He can figure this out. He's got this, and he's worked in this price point. He's comfortable there. It's like that's all built into the infrastructure of the actual relationships, not the tech.
No, I mean, listen, the tech's going to be there and there's going to be a lot of novelty to
Always.
the tech. I'm definitely going to be probably somewhere in the middle to the back burner of on the tech side. But you know
Yeah.
what? Like, you know, uh, business is good. I don't need to really stress what is. But obviously, when you have downtime, you're always going to be like, what can I do to make things better? And,
Yeah.
have it there. But yeah, I mean, this is, it's a fun business. It's always, I just love that no 2 days are the same. And once a blue moon, they are, but they're not.
Yeah. Um, what sport did you play in college or high school?
Basketball. Basketball is my main sport in high school.
It comes through. Like there's a distinct mindset of people who played sports and like not looking at a misstep as a failure, but it was like, oh, I can learn from that. I'll fix it the next time. And it
Yeah, I got
definitely comes through with what you're saying.
need foundations. I always say you need some building blocks. Is one thing I preach to all my agents is like there is always light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to give yourself the right tools and path to get there. And don't forget, there's a reason why you're on the team for mentorship. And, I
Yeah,
look at my past, I
it's
had
a great
many
point.
mentors to kind of get to where I am. And, I don't consider myself the master by any means, but that's part of the networking and the relationships is when I go around, it's not just to um, network. It's also really to mastermind. I'd say a lot
Yeah.
of my best ideas I would say as a realtor in the business has come from talking to other agents in their markets and saying like even you and I talking right now, Sean, I'd be like, what are you doing that nobody else
Yeah.
is doing? And guess what? You could tell me because I don't sell where you are. I'm nowhere near you are. Like there's no secret sauce I'm stealing. And some of the best ideas I've have has been from masterminding with other agents, and I've also helped them in their sub markets as well, which has really been fun too.
I appreciate that you shared that. I always view that as pure coaching.
Mhm.
And you're right. When there isn't, like, you and I will never, ever, ever compete for the same piece of pie ever. And so if I go to you and like, hey man, I'm totally on the struggle bus right now. This thing is blowing up sideways. Have you ever faced it? And you're like, oh my God, dude, totally. I've been there. This is how you get out of it. And it's like, boom, a whole different, it's a game changer for both of us.
Yeah,
Um,
I distinctly calling a broker in New York and I go like, what have you done recently that has popped in marketing? And he's like, dude, here you go. He sent me his mailer and I immediately gave it to my my marketing team. I said, we got to recreate this. And next thing you know, I got a bunch of phone calls once we sent it out and a few listing appointments and one listing from it. And I was like, that all came from a
right.
conversation from another broker in another market who sent a similar postcard out. And then I shared it. And then everybody else started doing it. And then everybody else went, gangbusters from it. And it was a simple
Yeah.
postcard that says, if I could sell your house tomorrow, for how much would you sell? And it was like a picture of a phone and like it was something like that. I can't remember the exact wording, but it went viral very quickly like even though a lot of text messages and phone calls I was getting from my friends, clients were like $5 trillion, it was engagement and it was a good idea
Yeah.
because it brought me back to the top of mind for a lot of people.
For sure. Even yeah, even if they're like, oh, 5 trillion, it creates a conversation.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, that's hilarious. I would love to get you that. And then it's like you're at least riffing, and that's the point. It's funny. Similarly, one of our best mail campaigns we did, there was a QR code, and it said, "What's my home worth?" And then the QR code brought them to an automated CMA, which obviously they gave their email and phone number, which then we were able to get on top of. Um, but yeah, it's the same thing. It's like once somebody shares
Mhm.
that secret sauce, man, just run with it. Like there's no point in reinventing the wheel. But in terms of networking and peer coaching, it's funny that everything that we're talking about, this podcast was and is for me to network and do it efficiently. And it was mostly like during COVID. How do I get to hang out with these brilliant minds all over the nation? And then not only that, additionally, be able to raise the bar for our industry. And so
Mhm.
you're sharing tips and tricks and secrets right now, which is going to go out to the other 2.5 million agents, which is now giving us both mind share. You're building another reputation. Somebody's out there listening, like, oh, shit, Aaron's out of Florida. Let me connect with him. Um, Funny enough, the most communication I get from being in this seat, I get texts randomly from agents all over the U.S. Hey, I got somebody moving to blank. Who do you recommend? Who do you know there? From people I've never ever met, which is totally wild. But I would actually say the secret sauce to this podcast was I started meeting with past guests of the show 2 times a month, and
Mhm.
we do just what you're saying. Is somebody's in a different market, there's no competition, like, hey, I'm trying to grow my team right now, I'm struggling with X, what do y'all recommend? And then different people are able to chime in. And so that's friends like Charles and Brian Knox and Andy and Francie, they're all in that group. So with that, you have an invite. I'll send you information after it if you're interested in being there. Would
Of
love for you to
course.
join. Obviously, you bring an A game, but you'll get to hang out with these heavy hitters too.
All good people and all masters in their own crafts is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely are. And similar to you, it's like I'm just constantly learning. I'm learning and refining from, you just pick up that one little thing from somebody.
Oh,
and
I
you're
agree, and that's
reminded.
why I tell people always go to the conferences and different things because you would pick up one tidbit, that's
Yeah,
all you need, or one motivation factor, or one connection. But if you don't put yourself out there, you don't know. That's the hard thing. And that's,
yeah,
that was kind of, putting yourself out there is the other big thing of the business, which some people are scared to do.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's two buckets of agents, right? There's the agent who's out there networking and being known, and then there's the secret agent, and no one does business with the secret one. Like no one knows they're out there. Like on some level, you have to get in front of people, whether however you want to refine your specific marketing. But if you're doing ads, that's getting in front of people. Or
Mhm.
if you're doing open houses, that's getting in front of people. Or if you're going to these brokerages and networking with agents for referrals, that's getting in front of people. But at the end of the day, it's people move the business.
Yeah, and it's also reinforcing the message. So even though you go do these things, you got to stay on top of people. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing I would say. That's it's all about the follow up sometimes too.
And tell me about that. What are you specifically doing? Because at this point, 15 years in, your CRM has to just be ridiculously massive.
It's pretty immerse, and I've also realized that even myself, every day I'm clicking unsubscribe or delete. So, I try to be as intentional as I can, and I really
Yeah.
just try to go through my memory decks as like who am I not talking to recently, or I always try to think of things. But when I think about all the sub markets too, it's like if I'm going there, I got to figure a way to get everybody together. So I always try to do some happy hour things like this because you just try to stay on top. But I have this like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method where I'm always trying to just keep myself busy during the day. So I'm always trying to, who have I not talked to in a while? Who should I give a
Yeah.
call? Who's in the other market? Or which active person do I need to follow up with? So, it's a constant, when I say it's a constant game, but yeah, I'm playing a game every day of like, who have I not spoken to in a while, and stay on top of
Yeah.
mine.
I mean, and I don't think there's anything wrong with gamifying it because if you're not having fun doing it, you're not going to do it. And then it
Hmm.
goes back to your point earlier of it's just a grind, and then you're
Hmm.
not having fun grinding. Like
Yeah.
it should be a game. Like, hey, let me
Yeah.
see in 15 minutes how many people I can text. Like that's
Yeah, and by
fun.
the way, it's all genuine text. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, of
I'd be
course.
like, "Hey, thinking of you. Haven't talked to you in a while. What's up? Have time to catch up this week." And sometimes it's a precursor text to set up a call for the following week, or
Yeah,
just making calls like random in the blue because you're like, "Oh, I was thinking like I was watching this the other day and thought of you. Like, what's shaking?" Or you know what I mean?
yeah. Which those are I've received them, and they're to your point. They come across as they're genuine. Like they're it's really nice when just random things happen. It's funny. I'm in San Francisco, and obviously parking is just a complete nightmare here. And I was going to preview a property, and I just happened to park in front of this. It's a 3 unit building, and my clients bought the top floor, and so I took a picture of my car with their house in the background. I was like, hey, I promise I'm not stalking you. I'm looking at the house next door. We should catch up soon. And then that evolved into us grabbing dinner, which actually turned into a referral.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you just kind of look, I think if agents just look for those little mini opportunities, they're all around us.
100%. There, everything is around for the taking, but it's also just about being aligned and figuring
Yeah.
out, the where you fit in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah,
Or
it's like,
where or not fit in, but it's like how you want to play the game is the way I would say.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. And so I feel like to expand on that, it's like, well, what do you enjoy doing and where do you want to invest your time
Mhm.
consistently to get those results over a period? Because the math is and the reality is if you're not that type of extrovert who enjoys networking and you get panic attacks and anxiety thinking about going into another office, then that's probably not your jam. Go find your jam.
Oh, listen, it's a whole mindset. I've even this year myself, I was sitting with a few of my cohorts and my family. It's just like I got to do less this year because last year, even though it was a lot of fun and there was a lot of this, it was a grind. You're
Yeah.
still away. I still have young kids. I have a 6 and 8 year old. You want to be there for the sports and
Oh
different
yeah.
things that are going on. So it's just like trying to be present. So I've actually trying to implement more of that master networker around more local, so that way I can do more
Smart.
by doing less as well. But don't tinker with things that are not broken. So you got to keep the roadshow going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really it's fascinating from doing this podcast. It there's a certain level of team or agent when they hit like this certain point, that's really when they turn on that networking faucet.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I don't know if they turn it on when they get there or they turn it on to get there, which is a huge distinction.
Yeah, and look, it's the right mindsets and foundations. But listen, you can network. I still, for me, growing up in my hometown of Boca has always been super special. I always
Right.
feel like I'm teaching a history lesson, historical things, almost like financial stuff. And clients ask me all the time, like, "Well, what do you think?" I'll be like, "Well, listen, historically, this is what this was. This is where it's
Yeah.
trending. Things like that." So, for me, it's always been easy because it's like my backyard. I'm not necessarily like a transplant broker who come down here and
Yeah.
doing things like this. So that's been like a lot of big affinity for a lot of the clients when they work with me because they know who I am. They know that I grew up here. They know I have kids. So they always, they respect, stuff. But, there's plenty of us that are to go around. But like I said, it's great connecting with people that are of like mindset.
Yeah. Where do you see, with obviously the rise of tech and AI, in with your own current networking, where do you see the next evolutionary, like the opportunity is for you and your business?
I think it's really more of what I want it to be. I could sit here and go through the corridors and hours upon hours with ChatGPT and try to figure out how to fully automate, but that's just never going to be me. Like, I really just rather just kind of keeping with what I enjoy, and what I enjoy is
Yeah.
talking to people and connecting. But I do think the AI is an interesting approach. People do think that us brokers will get obsolete over time, but I just don't see it. I mean, maybe one day in the near future, but until we're all wearing Oculus headsets and then going through things and then seeing something digitally versus in person, I still feel like will be brokers, there will always be things. Granted, it's an evolving process, and
Mhm.
to me, it's just I think the more that's out there, there's more opportunity for people to succeed. But I also just think like don't get super distracted from what works.
Yeah. I, I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate the reframe of it's not necessarily more, it's just do what works. Um, it's interesting, and I'm really curious of how this is all going to shake out, but think I just don't think AI is going to take the job per se. I of course think it's going to take and relieve some aspects of what we do, of course, but at the end of the day, when a client is having when a client is making a significant investment, more often than not, the largest investment of their life, and all of their emotions are on the line, a computer is not going to be able to have an empathetic conversation about their wants and needs and desires and goals through the experience. And so I think and I feel at the end of the day, still the human currency is going to be important for our industry, not for the whole process, but for the key intervals with clients, is my
Uh,
take.
I agree. Touch and feel are always going to be there, and there is always some tangible thing. As much as someone can automate and do things in the computer, and that might have been the difference, I would say, during the COVID eras, where you were very limited and you were
Yeah.
very dependent upon video tours and Zooms and
Yeah.
all these like side of things. It's like we're back into a normal world where like people are going to want to touch and feel, and people are going to want to have organic conversations. People are going to want
Yeah.
to talk to the neighbor and say what's this is like, not just like ChatGPT said this is A-rated school and top 5 community, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Um, well, and it flashes me back to COVID, which Florida was looser on restrictions than San Francisco by far, but we had the mask mandate, And
We've come
just
a
having a
long
mask and not being able to see my clients' facial expressions or them seeing mine changed the dynamic of our interactions. And so, again, I think and I feel for those clients who, they're high emotion people doing a highly emotional, having a highly emotional experience, needing the human connection, and then you're now putting a partition in between with a mask, and not even talking about AI as of yet. It changes the landscape for them. And so again, I think, you know, I think at the end of the day, if, like, heaven forbid, you're at the doctor's and you're getting the worst of the worst news that you can ever hear, you kind of want a human to look you in the eye and empathize with your experience, sharing it, rather than just staring at a computer screen of like, hey, you're going to die in 6 months. Like, what the fuck?
A little grim, but yeah.
Right.
No, I
But
totally.
again, I think that's where I don't think we're fully safe, but I think we're a little insulated
Yeah,
as an
I
industry.
don't think we're gonna be the Terminator anytime soon, but, listen, there's just
Right.
so many things, but, like,
I hope.
I could see myself if I was more on the commercial side, if I was just using AI, yeah, I could see that being more of, like, a seamless business analytic for investors because 'cause you're using all the stuff, but
For sure.
I still think in my particular market, which is more of like more the suburban luxury, different markets, like, it's still a touch and feel, meet
Yeah.
different people, because AI is not gonna tell you what what the neighbors and the kids are like. AI is not gonna tell you about the community versus X, Y, and Z. I think they're
Yeah.
all good things, but I think it's a rabbit hole, and it's just how much people wanna
Totally.
dig into it, and I always say stay afloat.
Yeah. Similarly, there's a million different ways to build a business, and this podcast has, I think, 170 banked episodes, and no two episodes are alike.
Yeah.
Every person has a different way to do it because it's, which goes back to the beginning of this conversation. It's what's right for them, for their market, for their team, for their personality, for how they enjoy building this business. And so there's no wrong answer, and that's the nuance, um, which is the human experience, which I think that's what it's all about here.
No, I mean, listen, you're your own entrepreneur in the business, and you choose your own adventure is what I would say. I found
Yeah,
great success from uh, going down where I've had fun versus
yeah,
when I talk to other people, they're just like don't want to dedicate it to it. So I get it.
yeah, yeah.
but
I
but
mean, there's no wrong way. There's no wrong answer. Is
no, listen, there's always a risk reward in whatever you do, and for me, it was betting on myself and kind of restructuring and doing things, and it all panned out.
Yeah, yeah. Which, yeah, I feel like that again. I feel like sports always gives you that ability, right? It gives you the confidence to bet on yourself because the majority of the time you're practicing and not actually playing. And then the days that you lost, it's like, I lost. I'm not a loser. I just happened to not do as well as the other team that day.
Yep.
And so then you go back to practicing harder. And I think that same mindset is is what's being translated into the business in the way that you're actually thinking about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the wonderful worlds of real estate, and it's just like, how do you stand yourself out? And to me, it's just be as organic as I can, and
Yeah.
hoping that my relationships will get me with the next set of relationships to continue to grow.
Yeah. On that, man, I think that's the best way to end cap this. What's the best way for somebody to find you if they want to reach out and chat with you more?
Oh, easy. I mean, I'm always available. You can always text, call me, but obviously, more people today, more and more, has been more Instagram. You can find me at the Buchbinder group. That's my team page, and Aaron Buchbinder is my regular page. But I'm on my phone as always, as any typical broker, and you can always find me.
Awesome, man. Aaron, appreciate it.
No, appreciate being here, and this was great. And thank you so much.